Dr. Jaiho Park stared at his computer screen for the fifth time that night. The numbers didn't make sense. They should have made sense, but they didn't. He rubbed his tired eyes and took another sip of his cold coffee. The main telescope room at the Korean Space Research Institute was quiet at 3 a.m. Most of his colleagues had gone home hours ago, but he couldn't leave. Not with these readings in front of him. "You're still here," a familiar voice called out. Dr. Hae-Hyun Kim walked in, carrying 2 fresh cups of coffee. She had been his research partner for the past 5 years. "Look at this," Jaiho said, pointing at his screen. "The black hole in the Carina constellation is, well, it's not acting like a black hole should." Hae-Hyun set down the coffee cups and leaned over his shoulder. Her eyes widened as she looked at the data. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Black holes don't emit light patterns like this. They absorb light. That's why they're black." "I know," Jaiho said. "I've checked the equipment 3 times. I've run the numbers again and again. Something is definitely coming from that black hole." He pulled up another screen showing a pattern of light waves. They were unlike anything either scientist had seen before. The waves pulsed in regular intervals, almost like a heartbeat. "Could it be a malfunction?" Hae-Hyun asked, but her voice suggested she already knew the answer. Jaiho shook his head. 3 different telescopes picked up the same signal. "And look at this." He pressed a few keys, and a new graph appeared. "The patterns repeat every 147 seconds. Exactly. Nature doesn't work that precisely." Hae-Hyun pulled up a chair and sat down. She started typing quickly, pulling up data from other black hole observations. "Every black hole we've studied follows Stephen Hawking's theories. They emit some radiation, yes, but nothing like this. This is structured." "Should we tell the director?" Jaiho asked, running his hands through his messy hair. At 3 a.m., Hae-Hyun laughed softly. "He'd kill us. But," she paused, looking more closely at the screen, "we should document everything. Take screenshots. Save all the raw data. Because if this is what I think it is, we might be looking at the biggest discovery in human history." Jaiho nodded and started copying files. As he worked, the pattern on his screen pulsed again. Light from a place where light shouldn't exist. A signal from the darkest object in space. The next morning, they presented their findings to Director Sang Won-yoon. The old man sat quietly, looking at their data for what felt like hours. Finally, he looked up at them. "Do you understand what this could mean?" he asked quietly. "If you're right, if this black hole is actually emitting structured light patterns, it means everything we know about black holes might be wrong." Hae-Hyun finished. Or Jaiho added, his voice barely above a whisper, "It means something where someone is using the black hole to send a signal." The director stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the early morning sun. After a long moment, he turned back to them. "Keep this quiet for now. Run more tests. Document everything. If you're right." He paused, a small smile forming on his face. "If you're right, the world of physics is about to change forever." As Jaiho and Hae-Hyun left the director's office, they could feel the weight of their discovery settling on their shoulders. Something was happening out there in space, 7,500 light-years away. Something that broke the laws of physics as we knew them. And they were the only ones who knew about it. At least for now. 2 weeks after their discovery, Jaiho and Hae-Hyun sat in a small conference room with Dr. Taewon Lee, one of the world's leading experts in theoretical physics. Papers covered every surface, and 3 empty coffee pots sat on a side table. "Show me the pattern analysis again," Taewon said, pushing his glasses up his nose. His normally neat appearance had given way to rolled-up sleeves and messy hair after 12 hours of continuous work. Hae-Hyun pulled up the latest data on the large screen. The light patterns remain consistent. They repeat every 147 seconds, and each sequence contains exactly 2,048 pulses of light. "That's what makes no sense," Taewon muttered, standing up to walk closer to the screen. Black holes are supposed to be nature's perfect garbage disposals. Everything goes in, nothing comes out. Except what? Jai-Ho asked, leaning forward in his chair. Except information. Todd-One turned to face them, his eyes bright with excitement. What if black holes aren't destroying information at all? What if they're processing it? Hei-Yun frowned. Like a computer. Exactly like a computer. Tai-One grabbed a marker and walked to the whiteboard. Look, we know that information can't be destroyed. It's a fundamental law of physics. When something falls into a black hole, its information must be preserved somewhere. He drew a quick diagram. What if black holes are taking the matter they absorb and converting it into quantum information? And what if that information is then encoded into radiation patterns? Jai-Ho stood up and walked to the board. You're saying the light patterns we're seeing could be output from the most powerful computer in the universe. Tai-One finished. A quantum computer made from a collapsed star. Hei-Yun typed rapidly on her laptop. That would explain the precise timing of the pulses. And look at this. She turned her screen around. I've been analyzing the structure of the light patterns. They're not random. They follow mathematical rules, like a computer code. If we're right about this, Jai-Ho said slowly, it means black holes aren't just dead ends in space. They're tools, maybe even a communication network. Tai-One nodded eagerly. Think about it. A network of quantum computers spread across the galaxy, each one capable of processing and transmitting unimaginable amounts of data. The perfect system for long-distance space communication. But who built it? Hei-Yun asked. Black holes form naturally. Do they? Tai-One smiled. We assume they do, but what if some of them were engineered, created or modified by a civilization far more advanced than ours? The room fell silent as they considered the implications. After a moment, Jai-Ho spoke up. We need to write this up, but no one will believe us without proof. Then let's get proof, Hei-Yun said firmly. We have the best telescopes in Asia. We have the data. And now we have a theory to test. Tai-One began gathering the scattered papers. I'll help you, but we need to move fast. Once word gets out about the light patterns, every major observatory in the world will be looking at that black hole. As they packed up their materials, Jai-Ho paused to look at the patterns still displayed on the screen. If they were right, they weren't just looking at unusual radiation. They were looking at a message written in light, sent through the darkness of a black hole, waiting for humanity to be clever enough to read it. Tomorrow, Hei-Yun said, placing a hand on his shoulder, we start trying to decode it. Jai-Ho nodded. The real work was just beginning. Du-Yun Kang had been staring at data patterns for so long that the numbers seemed to dance before his eyes. As the youngest researcher on the team, he often worked late into the night, analyzing the endless streams of data from the black hole. Tonight was his third consecutive night shift, and the office was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. He was about to get another cup of coffee when something caught his eye. A pattern within the pattern. He sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. This can't be right, he whispered to himself. He ran the analysis again, his fingers flying over the keyboard. The same result appeared. He grabbed his phone and called Dr. Park. 20 minutes later, Jai-Ho rushed into the office, followed by Hei-Yun and Tai-One. Despite the late hour, they all looked alert. Show us, Jai-Ho said simply. Du-Yun pulled up his findings on the main screen. I was looking at the light pattern sequences, trying to find any mathematical constants. Then I noticed this. He highlighted a section of the data. The pulses aren't just regular. They're forming prime numbers. Prime numbers. Hei-Yun leaned closer to the screen. Yes. Look. Du-Yun pointed to his analysis. The intensity of each pulse, when converted to numerical values, creates a sequence of prime numbers. But that's not all. He pulled up another screen. These prime numbers, when arranged in a specific way, form a three-dimensional pattern. Taiwan adjusted his glasses, staring at the new display. It's like a cube made of numbers. Exactly, Du Yen said. And inside this cube pattern, he pressed a few keys, and the display changed again. The numbers rearranged themselves, forming a clear geometric shape. That's impossible, Jai-ho breathed. On the screen was a perfect representation of a double helix, the structure of DNA. It's not a natural phenomenon, He-yun said quietly. This is a message. Someone or something is trying to communicate with anyone who can understand the mathematics. But why DNA? Ta-won wondered aloud. Why show us something we already know? To prove it's not random, Du Yen explained. To show us they understand the basic building blocks of life. It's like saying, we know what you are made of. Jai-ho sat down heavily in a chair. We need to see if there's more. Du Yen, how did you decode this? I wrote a program to analyze the mathematical patterns. I can modify it to look for other structures hidden in the data. Do it, Jai-ho ordered. He-yun, help him. Taiwan, and I will start documenting everything. We need to be absolutely certain before we take this to the director. They worked through the night, fueled by coffee and excitement. As the sun began to rise, Du Yen's program found something else in the patterns. This time, it wasn't just a picture. It was a sequence that repeated with perfect precision. Its coordinates, He-yun realized after studying the new pattern. These numbers, they're spatial coordinates, wherever this message is coming from. They're trying to tell us where to go. The team looked at each other, understanding the magnitude of what they had discovered. This wasn't just a signal anymore. It wasn't just strange physics. It was first contact, hidden in the light of a black hole, waiting to be found by anyone clever enough to look for it. Well, Jai-ho said, breaking the silence, I guess we know what to tell the director now. Outside the window, the morning sun rose over Seoul, unaware that humanity's understanding of its place in the universe was about to change forever. The conference room at the Korean Space Research Institute was filled with tension. Representatives from 3 space agencies sat around the large table, their attention focused on the presentation screen. Dr. Sun-mi Choi, the Institute's leading astrobiologist, had just arrived from her research station in Antarctica after receiving an urgent call. The coordinates, Jai-ho explained, pointing to the star map, point to a location 50 light-years from Earth. It's in what we thought was empty space. Sun-mi studied the map carefully. Empty space is rarely empty, she said. We just lack the right tools to see what's there. She turned to face the group. Have you detected any planets in that region? He-yun shook her head. No planets. But we found something else. She pressed a button on her laptop, and a new image appeared. There's a strange distortion in that area. Our instruments can't get a clear reading. The room grew quiet as everyone studied the image. The distortion looked like a ripple in the fabric of space itself. The patterns from the black hole have changed, Du Yen added. They're coming faster now, and they're more complex. He pulled up a new data set. We're receiving approximately 1,000 times more information than before. Sun-mi walked closer to the screen. Show me the DNA pattern again. As Du Yen displayed the earlier discovery, Sun-mi's eyes widened. This isn't just showing us DNA, she said. Look at these marker sequences. They're showing us specific genetic markers that are unique to Earth life. What does that mean? One of the space agency representatives asked. It means whoever sent this message has studied Earth's biology in detail, Sun-mi explained. They know exactly who they're talking to. Suddenly, Du Yen's laptop began beeping urgently. The pattern is changing again, he announced, typing rapidly. It's forming images. Everyone gathered around as new patterns emerged on the screen. The light pulses from the black hole were arranging themselves into clear geometric shapes. First came a sphere, then a double helix, and finally, a structure that made everyone in the room gasp. It was an unmistakable representation of a human figure. "They know what we look like," Hei-yun whispered. "More than that," Sun-mai said, her voice filled with awe. "They're showing us they understand us. From our basic genetic code to our physical form. This isn't just first contact. This is a carefully planned introduction." Taiwan, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "The coordinates, the biological data, the increasing complexity of transmissions, they're not just sending us a message, they're inviting us to respond." "Can we?" Jaiho asked. "Can we use the black hole to send a signal back?" "Theoretically," Taiwan replied. "If we understand how they're modulating the Hawking radiation, we might be able to create a similar effect with our own equipment. It would take enormous energy, but it's possible." The space agency representatives huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Finally, one of them turned to the group. "We need to take this to our governments. If there's really someone out there reaching out to us, using black holes as a communication network, this changes everything." As the meeting continued into the night, the black hole's messages kept coming. Each new pattern revealed more about the senders and their understanding of humanity. And in labs across Korea, scientists began working on a way to send humanity's first response through the darkness of space. 3 months after the discovery of the alien messages, the research vessel Hambit floated in Earth's orbit. Captain Eugene Kwan stood on the bridge, watching as the final preparations were made for humanity's most ambitious space mission. "All systems are ready, Captain," her first officer reported. The ship hummed with power from its experimental quantum drive, a technology that had been in development for years, but had been fast-tracked after the discovery of the black hole messages. In the science bay, Jaiho and Hei-yun worked with their team to calibrate the sensitive equipment they would need for the journey. The room was filled with advanced computers and quantum sensors, all designed to detect and analyze the mysterious signals. "Navigation has confirmed the coordinates," Hei-yun said, looking up from her station. "The distortion in space is still there, and it's growing stronger." Through the viewing window, Earth looked peaceful and blue. Most of its population still didn't know about the messages or the mission. The governments had decided to keep everything secret until they knew more about what they might find. "Final system check complete," the ship's computer announced. "Ready for quantum jump sequence." Yu-jin took her command seat and pressed the ship-wide communication button. "This is your captain speaking. We are about to attempt our first quantum jump. All personnel, secure your stations." The crew of 50 scientists and space explorers had trained for months for this moment. They were the best Earth had to offer, chosen from space agencies around the world. Each of them understood the risks of testing new technology on such an important mission. "Jump sequence starting in 10 seconds, the computer announced. 9, 8. Jaiho looked at Hei-yun. They had worked towards this moment since that late night in the observatory when they first noticed the strange light patterns. Now they were about to see what waited for them at the source of the messages. 3, 2, 1. The stars outside the window blurred. Everyone felt a strange sensation, as if they were being gently stretched and compressed at the same time. The quantum drive engaged, using principles they had learned from studying the black hole's messages to bend space itself. Seconds later, they emerged at their destination. The stretching feeling stopped, and the stars became clear again. "Jump successful," the computer reported. "All systems normal." But nobody was listening to the computer. Every eye on the bridge was fixed on the massive structure floating in space before them. It was like nothing they had ever seen. A giant ring of dark metal floated in space, covered in patterns that glowed with a soft blue light. In the center of the ring was what looked like a miniature black hole, but it glowed with the same blue light instead of being completely dark. "Are you seeing this?" Yu-jin asked over the comm to the science bay. "We're seeing it," Jaiho replied, his voice filled with awe. "The structure, it's artificial. Someone built this." As they watched, new patterns of light began to flow across the ring's surface. The ship's computers started receiving data at an incredible rate. "They're welcoming us," He-Yun said, reading the incoming data. "The patterns, they're similar to the ones we received through the black hole, but much clearer now." Yu-Jin stood from her chair and walked to the viewing window. Humanity had taken its first step into a larger universe, and she was here to witness it. Whatever waited for them on that structure would change everything they thought they knew about space, technology, and their place in the cosmos. "Send a message back to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them we've arrived. And we're not alone." Engineer Hyun Woo-song led the first team to approach the massive ring structure. Their small shuttle moved carefully through space, its sensors recording everything about the mysterious object before them. "The material isn't like anything we've seen before," Hanwoo reported to the handbit. "It absorbs and emits energy in ways that should be impossible." He guided the shuttle closer to the glowing patterns on the ring's surface. Inside the handbit, Captain Yu-Jin watched the shuttle's approach on the main screen. Jo-ho and He-Yun stood beside her, analyzing the data as it came in. "The patterns are changing," He-Yun noticed. "They're responding to the shuttle's presence." The blue lights on the ring's surface began to move, forming new sequences. A section of the ring's surface seemed to ripple, and a small opening appeared. "Captain," Hanwoo's voice came through the comm system, "I think we're being invited inside." After careful discussion, Captain Yu-Jin gave permission for the shuttle to enter. The small craft passed through the opening, entering a long corridor lined with the same strange material as the outer ring. Inside the corridor, Hyunwoo and his team put on their spacesuits. The corridor led them to a large chamber that looked like a control room. As they entered, lights came on automatically, and surfaces began to glow with familiar patterns. "This is incredible," Hyunwoo said, studying the room. "The entire structure is one giant quantum computer. The patterns we're seeing, they're like the ones from the black hole, but much more complex." He approached what looked like a control panel. The surface responded to his presence, displaying new patterns of light. Suddenly, a holographic image appeared in the center of the room, showing a map of the galaxy. Hundreds of points of light marked various locations. "Those are all black holes," Jaiho's voice came through the comm. "They're showing us the network." Hyunwoo reached out toward the hologram. As his hand got closer, the image zoomed in on one particular point, the black hole that had sent them the first message. "It's an interface," he realized. "This whole structure is designed to let us access and use the black hole network. They built it for us to find when we were ready." The hologram changed again, showing a sequence of images that explained how the system worked. The black holes weren't just natural phenomena. They had been carefully modified over millions of years to serve as communication points across the galaxy. "Each black hole is like a quantum internet server," Hyunwoo explained as he understood the images. "They can instantly transmit information across any distance because they're all connected at the quantum level. This station is like a terminal, letting us access the network." As if responding to his understanding, the station's systems began to activate fully. New screens appeared, showing vast amounts of data streaming through the black hole network. "We're getting messages," He-Yun reported from the handbit. "They're coming from all over the galaxy. Different civilizations, different species, all using this same network to communicate." Hyunwoo touched another control, and a new message appeared. Unlike the others, this one was clearly meant for them. A welcome message to humanity, explaining how to use the system and join the galactic community. "Captain," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "I think we just got our library card to the biggest information network in the universe." 1 week after discovering the interface station, the crew of the handbit had made remarkable progress in understanding the galactic network. The ship's science bay had been transformed into a central command center for managing the flood of information coming through the black hole network. Dr. Tadwan Lee arrived from Earth on a fast transport ship, bringing additional quantum computing equipment. His eyes widened as he entered the science bay, and saw the streams of data flowing across multiple screens. The network is more vast than we imagined, Jai-ho explained as he showed Ta-1 around. We've identified communications from over 10,000 different civilizations, all using black holes to share information across the galaxy. Ha-Yun worked at a nearby station, translating some of the incoming data. Many of these civilizations have been part of the network for millions of years, she said. They've shared their entire histories, scientific knowledge, and cultural information through the black holes. Captain Yu-jin entered the science bay, followed by Dr. Sun Ma-choi. Show him what we found about Earth, the captain requested. Ha-Yun nodded and brought up a new display. Earth has been observed for a long time, she explained. The network contains detailed records of our planet's evolution, from the first appearance of life to the rise of human civilization. They were waiting for us to reach the right level of development, Sun Ma added. The messages we received through the black hole were a test. They wanted to see if we could understand quantum physics well enough to decode them. Ta-1 sat down at one of the stations, studying the data with growing excitement. The way they modified the black holes, it's brilliant. They found a way to stabilize the quantum fluctuations at the event horizon, turning it into a perfect information processor. At that moment, Hyunwoo's voice came through the communication system from the interface station. Everyone, you need to see this. The network is sending us something new. The main screen filled with a complex series of images and diagrams. It was a complete technical manual for building their own black hole communication node in Earth's solar system. They're not just letting us use their network, Jai-ho realized. They're inviting us to help expand it. Captain Yu-jin studied the technical specifications carefully. Can we build this with our current technology? Not yet, Ta-1 replied. But with the scientific knowledge available in the network, we could develop the necessary technology within a few years. As they discussed the possibilities, more information flowed through the network. They learned about the many civilizations that maintained the system, each contributing their unique knowledge and perspectives to the vast library of information. Look at this, Ha-Yun called out suddenly. She had found records of other civilizations' first contact with the network. We're not the first to go through this process. Each species discovers the network in their own time, when they're ready. The crew gathered around her screen, watching as the stories of dozens of other civilizations unfolded before them. Some had found the network thousands of years ago, others had joined more recently. Each discovery had led to dramatic advances in science and culture. We have a lot to learn, Captain Yu-jin said, looking at her crew. But we also have something to contribute. Our journey to this point, our determination to understand the mysteries of space, that's what brought us here. Through the viewing window, they could see the interface station glowing softly against the backdrop of stars. The structure that had once seemed alien now represented humanity's gateway to a larger community, one that spanned the entire galaxy and communicated through the darkness of black holes. 1 month after discovering the galactic network, the crew of the Hanbit gathered in the ship's main conference room. Representatives from Earth's governments watched through a secure quantum link, their faces displayed on screens around the room. Jai-ho stood at the front, presenting their latest findings. The network has chosen to make formal contact, he explained. They have invited Earth to send representatives to a gathering of civilizations. Captain Yu-jin stepped forward. The meeting will take place at what they call a hub world, located near the galaxy center. The journey would take us through a series of connected black hole gates. The room filled with excited whispers. Ha-Yun brought up a detailed star map showing their proposed route. The network has provided us with safe passage protocols. Their technology will protect our ship during the journey. Dr. Sun Ma-choi presented her analysis of the other civilizations they would meet. We have studied their biological data. Many are quite different from us, but all of them began just as we did, by discovering the messages in the light of a black hole. Engineer Hyunwoo Song had spent the past week studying the technical specifications for the journey. The quantum drive modifications are complete, he reported. The ship is ready for deep space travel using the network's protocols. One of the government representatives spoke up. What exactly do they want from us? Knowledge exchange, Dr. Tawanli answered. Each civilization brings its unique perspectives and discoveries to the network. They believe diversity of thought leads to greater understanding of the universe. The Hanbit's crew had already volunteered to make the journey. They would be humanity's first ambassadors to this vast community of civilizations. The preparation had been intense, but they felt ready. There's something else you should know, Jai-Ho said, his voice filled with wonder. The network has shown us their greatest project. They are working to understand the very nature of existence itself. Each black hole in the network is part of a vast experiment. Hao Yun continued the explanation. The network isn't just for communication. It's a tool for studying the fundamental laws of the universe. They believe black holes hold the key to understanding everything: space, time, and consciousness itself. Captain Yu-jin addressed the representatives directly. We stand at a turning point in human history. We have been invited to join something greater than ourselves. The question is, are we ready to accept? The vote was unanimous. Humanity would accept the invitation. 2 days later, the Hanbit prepared for its historic journey. The crew stood on the bridge, watching as the interface station activated a special sequence. The miniature black hole at its center expanded slightly, forming a stable gateway. All systems ready, Hyunwoo reported from his station. Navigation locked on target. Hae-yun confirmed. Jai-Ho looked around at his colleagues, now at his fellow explorers. They had started this journey by noticing an unusual pattern of light from a distant black hole. Now they were about to travel through one, carrying humanity's hopes and dreams to the stars. Captain Yu-jin took her seat. Send the final message to Earth, she ordered. Humanity accepts the invitation to join the galactic network. We are on our way to meet our cosmic neighbors. The Hanbit moved forward, entering the gateway. As they passed through, the crew caught a glimpse of what waited on the other side. A universe full of wonders, knowledge, and new friends to meet. Back on Earth, in the quiet observatory where it all began, a young researcher watched the last message from the Hanbit come through. Above her, the night sky seemed different now. The black holes were no longer objects of darkness and mystery. They were gateways to humanity's future among the stars.